Okay, in this video, we're going to discuss the 7 densities of creation, and a lot of the stuff I'm going to share with you is from the raw material, which is channeled work, and raw is a 6th density social memory complex, an entity, let's call it. And so it really resonated with me. I have been getting more familiar and intimate with the work. And the central theme of the raw material is that there are essentially 7 densities of creation, of existence. And so it very much also resonates, you know, and actually pretty much agrees with the chakra system, you know, the Indian chakra system. In fact, the shoe fits so well. In any way, in any case, it really resonated with me. You know, the 7 densities, and as with any time you hear a channeling, you have to really discern with your own intuitive knowing if it resonates with you. Is it the truth? Is it not? And for me personally, the raw material really hit home. It really struck a certain chord inside, an intuitive knowing, an intuitive knowledge, and I take it as truth. I take most of it, let's say, perhaps all of it even, you know, let's say most of it. I take most of it as truth. I just trust my intuitive sense of knowing. So the bit with the 7th density, I think you'll find it very interesting, to say the least, very useful. And that's what we'll discuss. And we'll talk about the wanderers also, which is another fascinating and central theme in the raw material. So the idea is that there are 7 layers to creation. You could also think of spiral dynamics, which is a popular model now that sort of also divides up the evolution of consciousness into layers. So clearly, you know, you get the chakra system. Clearly, there's a certain hierarchy to the game in which we happen to be playing, the game of the evolution of consciousness. That seems to be very clear. And so people have come and gone and came up with all kinds of models. We have the chakra system, then we have the 7 densities, which is primarily derived from the raw channeling, the raw material. So the idea is this: there is consciousness, there is wholeness, there is oneness, there is isness, and it decided through its infinite intelligence to divide itself up into pieces, fragmented pieces, experience itself subjectively through a subjective, limited, finite lens, and then evolve itself until it goes back to itself, until it goes back to its source, until it goes back to wholeness, until it goes back to oneness. So the way it does that is it creates this game, this multi-layered game with 7 layers, and it starts at the very basic, the first layer, 1D, density number 1, and it moves its way up the densities all the way to the 7th, where it merges back into itself. And in that act of merging, the game resets. It integrates everything from its past, all this, its journey through the 7 densities, and it repeats again with that. Because essentially it's like, because consciousness is pure awareness, so it creates the game to be aware of itself. So it's like it's sending all its parts into all these adventures, and it gets to know itself through each adventure, and then it collects it. It says, well, that's how I guess that's who I am, that's who I am, that's who I am, and then it keeps going on forever. Creation goes on forever, the evolution goes on forever, the knowing, the consciousness, the gaining of awareness, of pure awareness, because pure awareness can't be aware of anything, goes on forever, because pure awareness is infinite. So the game starts at the very basic density, that's being. Okay, So a perfect example of 1D. So we're right now in like a third density vibration, which is planet Earth currently, moving into fourth density. We'll talk about that. But the way it goes on is whenever you go higher up a density, it includes all the densities underneath it. So right now 3D includes 2D and 1D. But 1D only, strictly, if you were to go to a planet that's only 1D, it wouldn't have human beings, it wouldn't have animals. It would just be the things that are just... So an example of a 1D entity would be a rock. Okay? This is a 1D entity. This is just, I mean, just sitting beside a rock, you get a sense of timelessness, just being. It isn't self-aware, it's just being. You know, it doesn't have the self-awareness of, say, a human being, which is a third density and beyond being, entity. But this is 1D. This is just, it's being. So that's why, like, you know, when I go to the Pi Canyon here, which is a lot of rocks, I just get this, like, I get plugged into timelessness, into just being. No self-awareness, just being. You know? So it's just being. It isn't active, it isn't seeking, it isn't doing anything yet. And this is a very, very long, like mountains, you know, mountains are fascinating, you know, they just, oof, they plug you into this because it's rocks, right? And so it's just timelessness, just awe, just because they're just being, right? They're not really trying to survive, they're not playing the survival game, they're not playing the reproduction game, none of that is going on. After eons, this is a very, very long part of the evolution of consciousness. This is why things like crystals, for example, have been used by Egyptians. And by the way, what I wanted to mention is the Ra is also an Egyptian deity, the sun. So the Egyptians, you could be damn sure that they worked with Ra also. And in fact, in the raw material, they asked them, did you work with the ancient Egyptians? And Ra, the entity, the social memory complex, said yes. You know, worked with the Egyptians. So clearly, the Egyptians worked with Ra to do a lot of the incredible things that they've done. And we know, basically, Egyptians had many, many contacts with extraterrestrials, and so I guess Ra was one of them. So you know, again, that's also part of why the raw material really resonated with me, and that's why I'm sharing it in this video and in future videos as well. So what I was saying is this takes much time, and so things like crystals and sacred rocks can really carry a lot of energy because of all the time that they've spent evolving and collecting information and collecting knowledge and really just soaking in consciousness. So they're great at storing. Now, after eons, this is, I don't know, maybe what it is, you know, it's got to be one of the longest. I don't know which one is the longest one consciousness spends time evolving in, but it's very, very long. We're talking, I think, billions of years. Think of the Earth, for example. It took like 3-4 billion years or something for the Earth crust to evolve. So we're talking billions of years here. After that, the elements, these things that were just being, like rocks, and, you know, mountains, etc. The elements, water is another one, right? The elements, so you can think of, you know, the element of air, the element of fire, the element of earth. They begin to interact with one another. Okay? And now consciousness in that particular expression starts to move into second density. Second density is associated, so you can also reference the chakra system. So the root chakra is the root chakra. It's the basic. It's basic, you know, and it's got that serpent energy in it. It's very basic. It's like, you know, just primal, just isness, just being. And then it moves up to the second density, which is the sex chakra, or let's say growth and creativity. So the elements begin to interact with one another. And so if you follow the Greek methodology, they have beautiful stories of you know, Gaia interacting with, you know, they have different names and different gods, all the elements essentially interacting with one another to come up with, you know, creation. So the elements begin to interact, and then we start to have growth and movement and creativity. So organisms begin to take on, you know, life. They begin to experience themselves in movement. So first, it's basic, it's primal, it's restful, it's quiet, it's, you know, timeless, and then it gains movement. Okay, so movement, so things begin to move. The elements interact with one another. Next thing you know, you have bacteria. Next thing you know, you have plant life. So plant life and animal life are examples of 2D. So look, we're on a planet that's in 3D right now, moving to 4D, okay, and then 5th dimensional as it goes on. But we can see everything here. So here we could see right here, plant life, and a bee over there. Those are all second density entities, and so they're, you know, growing, always looking to grow and procreate. This is explains perfectly the behavior of animals and even the behavior of plants. Always looking to grow, always looking to mate, always looking to, you know, spread their seed, right? That's you know, so animals would be higher up in the second density. The plants would be at the earlier stage of the second density. So you could see it in animals, especially pets. Pets are like almost graduates from second density, because what happens? So I'm 2D, I'm an animal, I'm now experiencing movement. I mean, you observe animals and they're just like, it's almost like they're fascinated that they can even move. You know, they're moving and they're, you know, they're instinctually just going to survive, to eat, so they can keep growing and spread their seed and mate and pass on their genetics. But they're not yet aware. They're not yet self-aware. You could see it. They're trying to gain self-awareness. Like, I went to the zoo last year, and there was this gorilla sitting there. And the gorilla was like scratching its head and thinking. And I'm looking, I'm like, whoa. It's like it's developing self-awareness. It's starting to develop self-awareness, and it's starting to develop the higher faculties, the philosophical faculties, the mental faculties. And it was fascinating just to look at the gorilla, like gaining self-awareness. You could see just beginning that seed of going to the third density. So you could see it in, like, for example, if you have a dog or a cat, they start to know themselves. You call them names. They start to feel a sense of distinctiveness, which most animals don't really per se have it. You know, some animals more than others. You know, but otherwise, you know, like ants. I'm looking at ants here. They're just doing their thing. You know, they're just like they're not. Their nervous systems aren't very sophisticated. They're just doing their thing, just acting on instinct, growth, movement, procreation. You see, not yet, like an ant does not have a distinct sense of I am an ant, as opposed to, say, a dog, who is more evolved in the second density, and dogs are very close to graduate from second density to third density. You see, so it's like you graduate from one density to the next. And it's 2D takes a lot of time as well, not as much as 1D. I don't have the precise numbers here, so but it doesn't take as long. Still, we're talking very long here. We're talking, again, you know, millions and billions of years. Okay, so 2D shorter than 1D, but essentially the organism begins to gain self-awareness, a sense of distinctive self. Okay, and through eons of evolution, it starts to realize feels distinct. Power chakra number 3, 3D. I am distinct. My name is Said. I am from Canada. You know, my parents are from Syria. All these distinctions begin to be gained. All these complexity, it keeps on getting complex. So now we have social structures, now we have institutions. It's more complex and everything is more distinct. Like, this is me, I am aware that I am an entity, a separate entity. I have a name, I have a birth date, I have a country, I have a passport, etc. And humans are exactly on this planet, are perfect, you know, most humans, the vast majority of humans are in third dimensional consciousness. So again, you see that a lot of humans still very much possess 3D and a lot 2D also, 2D. Some humans are just obsessed with sex. It's all they want to do, you know, one partner after another. Some humans are obsessed with survival, like that they're just, you know, they feel as if something's chasing them and they're constantly trying to survive. But they also have 3D awareness that I am a human, this is my religion, this is this. So again, when you go up a density, when a planet or a star system or something goes up a notch, it still includes everything below it. So a human being is 3D, 2D, and 1D. The humans are predominantly now 3D. Okay, but still very much embodying those 2D, because at the end of the day, it's about actually having all the chakras open and balanced. So it isn't that you forget. I mean, it's evolution. So it's inclusive. So 3D being includes 2D and 1D. You see? So that's the evolution from 2D to 3D, self-awareness. And that's the solar plexus, power. Okay, so then that's when, and 3D is the toughest one and the shortest one, because it is very tough. And often the 3D part of the game, the way it's played, is you have amnesia, you forget. When you incarnate into a 3D planet, you forget. There is the forgetfulness. That's just the way the game rolls, you know. I didn't set the rules. So talk to the managers. So 3D, this is where this planet is predominantly, the consciousness of this planet is predominantly at the moment. Okay, and that explains all the wars that are going on, that have been going on, the Mongol invasion, and I believe the Mongols were terrible. They killed 10% of the world's population by hand. They didn't have nuclear weapons. And I think I'm not sure, don't quote me on this, but I think he mentioned that Genghis Khan, you know, he totally went the dark side, because, you know, well, let's try and explain it a little bit here. So essentially, consciousness can go either light side, positive orientation, or negative orientation. And so the law of free will respects the choice of consciousness to go either way. Positive orientation, service to self. Negative orientation, positive orientation, service to others, which ultimately is service to self. Negative orientation, service to self. And I believe Ra talked about Genghis Khan, and he said that he went completely dark side. Like he's now a fourth dimensional entity or something, you know. Anyway, that explains that 3D consciousness explains the wars and the selfishness really of just the terrible condition the planet is in. It has been in, you know. It's a sea of suffering. But 3D is the shortest and has the potential for the most amount of knowledge due to and gaining of knowledge, and lots of evolution can happen due to the forgetfulness of it and the harshness of it and suffering. You know, it's very much the plane where suffering is at its peak. Okay, when Buddha spoke of, you know, the noble truth life is suffering, you know, in many ways it does refer to 3D, because once you go beyond it, there is no suffering there, there's no dukkha there. So 3D is tough, it's harsh. That's why it's a harsh planet, right? It's a tough place. It's a tough place. Being in a 3D planet is no laughing matter. It's no joke. It's difficult. This is the toughest part of the process, and so it's the shortest. I suppose that's also by design, because, you know, I guess God doesn't want to suffer all that much, because it's all God experiencing, right? So difficult place. Once organisms begin to gain self-awareness, they begin to act selfishly. Okay, and so going from 3D to 4D is going from the solar plexus power, selfishness, separation into the heart, and that's where the planet is actually moving right now. Fourth density, the heart chakra. Again, the 7 densities, really, it's like they match so well with the chakra system, and so it goes up. Consciousness now evolving to the 4th density, and there were periods, by the way, in which this planet was 4th density, and then it fell because it cycles, and now it's going back up again to 4th density. The Hindus talk about the Satyuga, right, the age of enlightenment. So there was a period where, you know, this planet was in the heart chakra, and then it descended, the fall of consciousness. Now it's going back up again because the planet decided, all right, I'm going back up again. I'm going back now. I want to go to 5th dimension, 5D. So yeah, so then that's going up 4th density. So human beings, fine example of a 3D. Human beings on this planet, fine example of 3D. The animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, 2D. Rocks, minerals, water, the basic primal elements of nature, that's 1D. Again, just keep in mind, everything gets inclusive. It becomes all inclusive. The up the density you go, you integrate all the learnings. You know, that's why it's evolution. Evolution doesn't spit out anything, it just integrates it. So 4th dimensional, you start to realize the oneness. You start to feel love towards others. You see yourself in others. Still dualistic, okay, still dualistic, but it's the plane of love. It's the plane of unity. It starts to see more and more unity, and it starts to act in service to others. Okay, it starts to become less selfish, more considerate, and that's where we have compassion and empathy. Those are probably the 2 major defining features of 4D, 4th dimensional. Okay, and an example of a 4D entity can be like spirit guides, for example. Now, angels are higher. Angels are 5th and 6th even. Spirit guides would be 4th dimensional entities. They say Jesus was a 4th dimensional entity. So actually Jesus was not totally self-realized, like 7th density and beyond. 4th density, so he still actually is doing his own learning now in other time, space locus, right? However, 4D, that's the basic plot. It's empathy and compassion. Okay? And so now here's something very interesting. So an entity could go 4th dimensional negative. Okay, and Ra says that 60% end up going positive usually, 30% is a mixed bag, and 10% end up going negative. So consciousness can choose the dark side. That's the Darth Vader. Darth Vader was light side and he switched. And in the raw material, you know, he mentions that some people will go positive 4th dimensional and then they'll switch to negative 4th dimensional. And those are like the reptilian entities, the negative entities. So it's much in the same way Darth Vader. I mean, it's all over our movies and our art here in this 3D planet. You know, it's all over. It's all over. Like Darth Vader was light side and then switched to dark side. And he was like, you could say he's high up there. You know, you could say he's a Jedi. So let's say 4D, he was positive and he switched negative. So that happens. That happens. So you could go 4D negative. Okay, you could decide to go service to self. Okay, there is a shadow side to everything. There's a shadow side to the heart chakra. In this case, the shadow side is this. I love this individual self so much that I'm going to work and dedicate everything that I have, all my consciousness, all my energy towards elevating it above all else. You see that it's the shadow side. Okay, so the light side would be compassion, empathy. The shadow side would be narcissism, essentially. I mean, you love this self so much that you want to put it above everything else. Okay, and so that's 4D negative. And you can go down that path. Not many people choose to because it is more difficult. You're going against your basic nature as loving awareness. But it is respected in the game because the free will is very much respected. So each part of consciousness has the right to follow any path that it wants. It has the right to go. The thing with the negative path, though, you can't make it past 6D. You can't go to 7D. Eventually, you have to realize your true nature and then switch sides. Okay, so the game is rigged to the light side, essentially, which kind of makes sense in like the 4 yugas in Hinduism. Basically, the Age of Enlightenment is the longest. Kali Yuga, the Age of Darkness, is the shortest. The game is rigged. Consciousness is, at the end of the day, very loving and light and compassionate. So it's rigged. You could go all the way to 6D, but then you can't, as a negative entity, but you can't make it past 6D. You gotta switch at some point. So it's a more difficult path. Ra says only 10% of the people take it because it's more difficult. So the game is rigged towards the light side. You see? Yeah, again, like I said, even in the Hindu scriptures, you know, the Sat Yuga is the longest, the Age of Enlightenment. So the game is rigged. It's easier to go on the light side. So a little bit of admiration to the folks who choose the dark side. It's a difficult path and it leads nowhere. Eventually, you have to switch over. So that's the 4D. So you could go positive or negative here. And then 5D, fifth dimensional. And angels, I believe, are 5th or 6th even. So 5D, wisdom. Wisdom. Okay? It's the plane of wisdom, light, wisdom. That's when you gain wisdom. Like, for example, a being who's like a 4th dimensional being, for example, would certainly have too much compassion, not balanced by wisdom. So a being, for example, who's here on earth and just keeps crying because they just feel the suffering of all. That's more than likely a 4th dimensional entity here on the earth, also looking to gain more wisdom, but they're not seeing with wisdom that everything is perfect, and they're not seeing that the best thing that they can do is to actually alleviate the suffering as opposed to keep crying forever and ever and not do anything about it. You see the difference here? So as a 4th dimensional entity, a 4D entity, you're so full of love and compassion, and your next step in the evolution would be to balance it with wisdom. Otherwise, again, you just be crying all day, every day. Because there's so much, especially if you're coming here in the 3D. I mean, it's a sea of suffering, you see? So then the next evolution of consciousness would be to gain wisdom. And that's called the light, light. So it's gain wisdom. It's gain wisdom. And that's when you can become more detached. You know, that's the detachment that is, mentioned in a lot of the Indian philosophies. Detachment, just understanding, really understanding of the game, the laws, how it works, cause and effect, all that stuff. It's just understanding of how the game works. And so then that also has its own problems, which leads to the next evolution, is you can become too detached. So you become just kind of cold. I can think of certain people that I know, very wise, very, very wise, but very much not compassionate, not much compassionate, and a lot of them would be 5th dimensional entities who are, what's the next one now? 6D is balancing of love and wisdom. It's you both loving and wise, 6th dimensional. Okay, a lot of angels are 6th dimensional entities. They have the wisdom, so that's why angels don't interfere too much, because they're wise. They understand, like they may see you suffering, but they say, well, you need to suffer right now. With wisdom, they see it, but they still feel love for you. And if you call upon them, they'll comfort you. So 6D is balancing. Because, again, 5D, what happens to a lot of 5D is, again, the gaining of wisdom, and you become so detached, and you say, well, everything's perfect. It's like, like I listened to a book, an audiobook, by this writer called Jed McKenna. Pretty hilarious, very entertaining. I got a lot out of it. But he pretty much, like, in the book, it's just pure wisdom. But he even says, I think he even says in the book, fuck compassion. I think that literally those were his words. That is clearly a 5th dimensional positive, not negative, because the book has a lot of wisdom in it. And it still it has an overall positive outlook. But it very much, like, is totally dismissive of compassion, totally. Well, what he doesn't realize is that he's 5D, and so he at some point was 4D, right? And then he went so far into 5D that he forgot to balance the love also and the compassion. So his evolution, I could see now that his part of the evolution, go and move into 6D, would be to, again, balance his love, which seems to have gotten so forgotten because you can be really immersed in wisdom and detachment and forget about the compassion and the love. And then 6D would be to cultivate both in this delicate balance. Now the cycles for evolution, 4D, 5D, 6D, they take forever. They take a long time. 3D is the shortest, but has the potential for the quickest evolution. Okay, due to the forgetfulness and the harsh nature of suffering. Suffering is a great teacher. Okay, whereas in those planes, because there isn't much suffering, like there isn't suffering really, there isn't conflict. Once you're in 4D, 5D, like it's all cool all the time. So you spend so much time just hanging out, relaxing, and learning, but it takes a long time. Because again, there's not conflict, there's no suffering. When you suffer, like you get somebody who you love and they die, and then it's like that shakes you. You suffer, that shakes you, and there's so much potential for learning. So then 6D, the balance of wisdom and light, the wisdom and love, or light and love, and then 7D, to just describe it to you, would be like orgasm, let's think sexual orgasm to the power of infinity. That's the 7th chakra, right? So 6D would be third eye, right? Which is usually associated with wisdom and love and unity. It's like integration. 7D, when a being moves to 7D, you're not gonna find them here. It's just like, again, imagine orgasm to the power of infinity. You're just now back to the source. And then in that backness to the source, because you've collected all the lessons, a being can spend does spend billions of years in time-space, billions, and then you collect all that knowledge, all that information, and then you move on to the next cycle, and it resets all over again. So it goes on for infinity, because it can only go on for infinity because that who's playing that game is infinite. So because it's infinite, there's an infinite things to learn about itself, so it goes on for infinity. Really fascinating. So that's essentially basically the plot, you see, and it kind of moves on. So I'm gonna pause this because this thing has a 33-minute limit, so I just gotta pause and then continue. Okay, so a being, like I said, can split at 3D and go into 4D negative, 4D positive, and then a 5D negative would be like a black magician. That would be a 5D. Somebody who gained so much, now they've gained such love for themselves, like the individual self, and they've now gone beyond. They want to gain all the wisdom as to how the laws of the universe work, how the dark side works, and then that would be like a Darth Vader. Think of a Darth Vader as a 5D negative. So you're a black magician. Aleister Crowley, that's 5D negative. And then you could move into 6D, so you could develop the shadow love for individual self and much wisdom, okay, but you can't move beyond it then. Then at some point you realize it's stagnant. You hit a brick wall. And then you gotta switch. You gotta switch to the light side. So all shall return home. All shall be realized. It's just that those who choose the dark side, it's kind of rough actually, you gotta have compassion for them. Because it's a difficult path and it leads nowhere at the end of the day. You spend billions of years, choosing the dark side, service to self, and then at some point you realize, well, I gotta be positive here. I can't be an asshole for another 5-6 billion years, because I can't do it, because I can't further evolve, because everything is programmed to evolve, and at some point you realize. So now let's talk about the wanderers, the concept of the wanderers, in relation to this. So a wanderer is also known as a starseed, is also known as what's the other terms? Wanderers, lightworkers, starseed. So Ra uses the term wanderer. I really like the term wanderer because the wanderer, I prefer to use it just because it is, in my opinion, more accurate. So a wanderer is often a fifth dimensional or 6th dimensional being, but also 4th dimensional, but they seem, the majority of them seem to be fifth dimension, 5D and 6D, is a being who has gone through the cycles, their own cycles, in different planets, maybe Venus, maybe different galaxies altogether, different star systems altogether that we don't really have any knowledge on here on Earth. And so you've gone through everything. You've evolved from 1D, 2D, 3D, 4D. Now you're in 4D, 5D, 6D. So now you've made it past the roughness. Wherever you did your 3D thing, you were done with it. Now you move to 4D, maybe even 5D, 6D even. Okay. Now you're obviously as a 5D or 6D entity, you're full of love, compassion, and wisdom, and you also see things as one. So, of course, when you see a planet, or you're called upon, because what had happened is the planet decided, I'm going to 4D. So it made the call, hit 911, cosmic 911, said, I need help. So, of course, as a compassionate being, as a wise being, you want to go and help. Okay? So a wanderer is essentially, you just go around helping. You see, you go around, because you go around, it's part of your work now. If you're a fifth dimensional entity, you want to go to 6D, you want to go and help and gain wisdom and serve with wisdom, and that your service is going to act as a catalyst for you move into 6D. So you're doing it for yourself also, for your own individual self. By serving others, you serve yourself. That's the positive path. So, of course, as a compassionate being sees the oneness, you see that I want to go help. This is me, and I really want to help the 3D people who are looking to move to 4D, but they've been stuck in this karma of the 3D, and you obviously want to help. And that's the wanderer. Ra talks about it. The wanderer is someone who goes around essentially from planet to planet, from star system to star system, answering calls, answering cosmic 911, and seeing if you want to take on the assignment, because it's going to help you go to the next level. Same as a 6D entity. It's the same thing. Like your job is to balance love and wisdom and go beyond. So again, you answer these calls, you go on these assignments, they help you and they help all others. So you take the path to service to others. So that's the concept of starseed. That's the concept of a wanderer. Okay. Now, how many wanderers are on this planet right now? 1% is what Ra says. So if we have 7.5 billion right now, let's say 8 billion, then about 80 million. So less than 100 million, let's say around 100 million would be wanderers, so 1%. Very good chance if you're watching this, you're a wanderer. I know I am. And so especially, here's this biggest sign of a wanderer. You really have a strong sense of mission, and you really want to serve. If you have a strong sense of mission and you want to serve, you're more than likely a wanderer. Okay, because most humans here, 99%, are 3D native to the planet. They've been in the cycle of this 3D karma, and now the planet is splitting. So the planet is moving to 4D, and then whoever wants to go to 4D is gonna stay on the planet, come with the planet. This is why the elites who are 3D negatives, influenced by 4D negatives, they want to go to Mars, they want to go to other places. You see now why? They understand this. Their time is over now. Because the planet, that's it. It placed a call. Even 1% wanderers, wanderers are beings of light and love, so they have such great influence that even that 1% can make the difference. So, the planets decided, I'm going to 4D. So the elites, the 3D elites, they realize we gotta go. That's why they're going to explore space. They want to be somewhere else. They gotta go. The cycle resets though. But for a certain period of time, the planet is only and only predominant, it's only actually going to be 4D. So, where our job as wanderers here is to just spread the light, spread the love, only up to 5%, no more, of the Earth's inhabitants will actually graduate to 4D, believe it or not. So, we're actually kind of here for that 5%, believe it or not, okay? We're here, but it's significant enough. They call it a harvest. Only 5% will make it. The other 95, they're going to repeat 3D again. There's too much karma, still too many samskaras, impressions. and still, you know, they gotta work on the selfishness and the love and everything. They'll have to go do it in other 3D planets. They'll reincarnate somewhere different. Because the planet Gaia said, I'm going 4D. Okay, you see? So, however, the cycle repeats after. So, after a certain period, then 3D is let's say, allowed to exist again. Because remember, it all is always inclusive. Okay? So, only about 5% will graduate. From the 8 billion here, only about 5%, you know, roughly speaking, 5% will graduate. Okay? They'll go to 4D, they'll gain this love and harmony and compassion and empathy. Now, you could easily see this now, because, I mean, look, if you want to understand exactly what's happening, look at, for example, look at the whole veganism movement and the Beyond Meat burger now. It's in McDonald's, it's in Burger King, it's everywhere. The vegan burgers and stuff. That's a sign that the people here are gaining more compassion, empathy. Okay, that's hard, that's 4D. And that's where the planet is moving towards. You can see it in everything. You can see there's more compassion, more tolerance, more empathy. You even see it more in the younger generations. But believe it or not, only up to 5% make it. Go fully to 4D. Okay, and the Wanderer is actually here for that harvest. It's called a harvest. They're actually here to become light, be light, be love, so that those people can make it, can go to 4D, positive 4D. And then yeah, the other 95 will have to repeat, but they'll have to repeat somewhere else. Okay, so very good chance, more than likely, that the population of the Earth, I think it's even projected to start decreasing at this point forward. I think we may reach 10 billion, then it will start to go down again. Okay, less souls will incarnate here because the planet will only tolerate 4D, and but other beings will come here and hang out as 4D as well. So you might say, well, only 5%. So does that mean the population of the Earth will go down to, like, I don't know, do the math of 5%? Doesn't mean it will be less than 1 billion? No, because now the planet is a 4th-dimensional planet. Other 4th-dimensional beings can come hang out here, other souls. So it's not that the population will suddenly go down to 5% of what it is. No, it's just that all the new souls, once the planet fully operates as 4D, all the new souls born here will be 4D souls, because they're the 4D souls. Their energy is gonna go towards the 4D planet. You see, so it's not a drastic decrease in population. It's just, all right, the next soul, its energy, if its energy is still 3D, it's not gonna be attracted to Earth no more. Right now, Earth is 3D, because so it's attracting all this 3D people that are still in the power chakra, you know, in the selfishness, trying to gain the awareness of the heart. But once the planet's 4D, your energy as a 3D will not take you there no more. It'll take you to a different planet to continue to play out your games and continue your evolution. You see? So, holy, there's a lot of burning here. Oh man, what's going on? Okay, so probably a good sign to finish the video. And yeah, so, but it's very, very fascinating stuff. I could talk about this forever. I'm just recently getting into this stuff, and I'm kind of sort of fully immersed in it actually lately, because it's like it's just explaining so much to me, you know, so much. As a wanderer who's waking up, let's say, it just explains to me all this. I mean, perfectly explains to me my existence. I've always had a sense of mission, and it just grounds me more in the work, and I feel pretty excited about the work now and the mission, and it's great. It's great. So yeah, it's absolutely fascinating, all this stuff, you know, talking about it and understanding it more and more. I highly suggest you start to familiarize yourself with the raw material. It just resonates on a deep level. You really know this is truth, you know, once you hear it, and you hear it quietly and calmly. It's just like, whoa, it makes perfect sense. Oh, it all makes perfect sense. And also, as a wanderer, you start to see that, you know, you signed up for this. So you take full ownership, and then you take full ownership for your human experience. Because a lot of wanderers, they, you know, I've met many, they always talk about not feeling they belong here, which is true. They almost, some of them will reject the human experience. But it's like you signed up for it. You're here to help the harvest, the 5%, and we're here for the 5% that is going to harvest, and we're here for the planet so that it could go to 4D, and then you leave. You go back to your home, your base, your home base, wherever that is in the 5th density or 6th density, Palladia, Arcturian, whatever it is. Okay, so you go back your home base. You know, because every soul has a home base, a soul family in which it evolved with. And I can think of a few individuals here that I know personally that are from you just know, like, you know, you just know they're from your home, your soul family, soul fam, right? That's the term. And usually the people that you just like instantaneous vibration with, you know, the people that you could sit down and talk with for 10 hours and not know there's any time. Usually these are people from your soul fam. They're here with you as well. And they're usually, I mean, you're like the same as them. They're also doing their own mission here. You're doing your mission. And when you guys get together, it's like old times, right? It's like your old buddies. So yeah, it's very fascinating. And also, like, it just makes you understand. You could just like be also with a human and just be like, be compassionate with all and just respect the free will of all and not judge, oh, 3D, like, you know, come on, grow up, go to 4D. You just understand. Like they asked Ra, what are your attitude towards 3D people? He says, look, if somebody wants to sleep, we will provide them with the comforts to sleep. It's like, if you want to keep sleeping, keep sleeping. There's respect for free will. So when you understand that, then you even like, you say, well, okay, I'm here for the 5%, the harvest. I'm just going to be light and love. I'm going to stop complaining and just be light and love. And you're working on yourself in your service to others. Because you're also, if you're 5D, you're looking to go to 6D. If you're 6D, you're looking to go to 7D. If you're 4D, you're looking to go to 5D. If you're 4D, you probably got a lot of wisdom here to share. And you're so full of love, which we need in this planet. If you're 5D, this is a perfect place for you to balance, to go to, because 5D wisdom, so you could go to 6D, and then you could balance love. This is a perfect place here. You might come here as a very detached person, but the planet needs so much love, and it might awaken for you that 4th chakra, that heart, which you already graduated from, so you could go to 6D and balance love and wisdom. So essentially everybody's here to do some type of work. You know, I'm looking at these people sitting there, again, based on probability, almost all of them will be 3D. Now, 60% of them will go positive, 10% of them negative, and 30% it's an imbalance. You see? Now they're also doing their own work. You see? They're here, you know, they're 3D, they're looking to go to 4D, either positive or negative. And some will, again, only 5% will make it. And then some will have to go to another planet. Right? The 1% is the wanderers, the 5D, and you know that right away when you meet them. You know, if you're a wanderer yourself and you know you're a wanderer, you know when you meet a wanderer. Okay, it's like, it's pretty easy. You know, they're harmonious, they're the love and light people. Right? The love and light people. And then I could see in certain humans, I could see that they're stuck in the karma of this 3D, but I could see that they're so positively oriented that they're almost there. I could see it. And those are the people we're here for, by the way, as wanderers. We're here for those that are almost there. They're native to this planet, they're native to 3D, but you could see they're so positive, but they still got these karmic things they're dealing with, and that's the 5% harvest. They're almost there. These are the people we're here for. Okay? So, and then you be kind to everybody else. There's no judgment here. It's like a big amusement park. Everybody's at a different XP. They got different XP points, different part of the evolution. A 3D entity should not be judged because they simply had less experience than, say, a 5D, a wanderer. A wanderer simply means I played the game longer. You know, it simply means you played the game longer. Good for you. So what? You feel superior that you play the game? Of course, you play the game longer, you have more XP points. You know, there's no need to get arrogant or feel superior about it. So you respect all beings, you respect their free will. You don't judge. You just see things as they are. You have to discern, you have to be, that's wisdom. So wisdom is like, you could look at someone and be someone and be like, realize that's a 3D negative. You could see that actually that being is going to end up being negative. You see? And you respect that, and you don't judge it, because you know at some point even if they go reach the dark path, that at 60 they'll hit a brick wall and turn positive. You see? So it's really fascinating stuff. I could talk about it forever, like I said, because I'm just so fascinated by it. It explains it, like I know all of this too. Like it's like when I listen to it, I'm like, oh yeah, of course, that's why. Oh yeah, it's like almost just reminds me of like I know all this, you know all this. It just reminds me, and yeah, it just makes you unconditionally joyful also, because you realize, well, I signed up for this. Let me experience this earth plane. Let me experience what it's like. Let me experience what the humans do here. Let me experience the food. You know, I mean, the whole Breatharian community is a bunch of wanderers. Okay, it's a bunch of wanderers, because you know the Breatharian community, which is living off light, that's what you're used to. You come from a 4th and 5th dimensional density. You understand what I'm saying? So it's like when regular people hear about it, they call you crazy and stuff. They don't know about this light stuff. They're still working on going beyond the 3D. However, what I was saying is, again, the respect of all, the free will of all, a recognition that everybody is in a different, have different XP points, putting them in different densities, in different places in the game. And yeah, that's pretty much the plot line here, folks. So we'll talk about this more. I mean, God, maybe I'll go home and you know, as I continue to familiarize myself, maybe I'll just roll the camera on and just talk pure like raw material for like hours, because I could literally talk about it for hours, because it's just so relevant to what's happening on the planet, and it's so relevant. I feel such relevance to it. I feel like this is it. It's almost just reminding me. I'm like, oh yeah. Oh, I remember. Like, I swear, I was hanging out by the stars and the moon on a mountain yesterday at night, and I was just like, yeah, of course. It's like I was remembering. I was like, oh yeah, I remember. Yeah, right, I signed up. Yeah, I was called here, and I said I want to come here, and I want to be a speaker and all. And I actually did it with such joy. And I was sort of hanging out with the ET fam last night. We were cracking jokes, laughing. You know, I come from a place that's, I mean, they're all a bunch of jokers, I'll tell you that. Okay, they're a bunch of jokers. Okay, that's wherever I am from, the star system, wherever the density I am, the particular planet, they're a bunch of jokers. They love joking and dancing, laughing and dancing. That's all they do. Okay, so when I'm hanging out there, it's just constant joking, constant laughter, constant playfulness. So, but yeah, it was like just all this raw stuff, the raw material. It was just like reminding me. It's like, I know, yeah, of course, yeah, you know what I mean? So I would look into it. If you feel a resonance to it, a calling for it, look into it, okay? So thank you to all the Patreons for supporting this work here. I will continue to do my mission here, which is to share this knowledge, this wisdom, because that's what I signed up for. So it feels like I'm on assignment, and this feels perfect, and this is what I'm here to do. So I do this very joyfully, the YouTube thing. And I'm appreciative of you, whether you support on Patreon or PayPal or not. I'm totally appreciative. This is the work that I'm here to do. I'm not looking for anything, okay? If you feel an inclination to support, there are links in the description. Saeed Mobayed at Instagram. And until next time, may the force be with you.